Time for the news.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. North South America, and all the ships and clippers at sea. Let's go to press.
News. We're going to open up with a sad piece of news. We were recording this on Wednesday, and this literally just happened. When we talk about the people most responsible for board gaming, the way it exists today, we hear a lot of names. We hear Sid Saxon, Richard Garfield, Klaus Teuber, Rainer Knizia. But for my money, the person that is the most responsible for what games have become is Francis Tresham. He was the designer of Civilization. He is the man who all of 18XX comes from him, comes from his designs. So far ahead of his time, it really boggles the mind. And when you add in the fact that he was widely considered to be one of the kindest people in the hobby, it is really, really sad to announce that he passed today. A safe journey, Francis. You touched a lot of people's lives, and I know that you will be missed by many, and many in our game group as well.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So news to me too. And we were considering doing a Civilization review in our part of our old school here. So Civilization is still around.
We literally last night at game night got out the Civ box, pulled it out, and set up the board a little bit.
If we'd had more time, like it's a Saturday game. It's not an 8 o'clock on a Tuesday game.
Oh, it's 8 hours. Yeah. Even if you reduce the length of the AST,
it's old school.
It's We'll get into it. But Francis Tresham, certainly, we have lost a titan of old school. Other news: I got my copy of Dune, and it seems that the miniatures that we were talking about last week, that were supposed to be an exclusive for Gale Force 9, that Matt canceled his order to order from a different place for more money to get those miniatures. Guess what? I got my miniatures. They came in my box too. I have a feeling they're in all of the boxes. Not a big deal. Miniatures aren't really bad.
Not a big deal. Matt's just out $10 or was it?
That's it.
That's it. That's all.
That's nothing.
It's not like that's humiliating or anything.
No, absolutely not. No, that's not even one cardboard insert to hold cards that already have a insert. So it's really nothing at all. So yeah, Dune. Everybody's really, really happy. We are super excited about that. What's Your Game? We've talked about What's Your Game before. They make Madeira. They make one game a year. They're a Portuguese outfit, and they make some amazing games. One of the few games that for us did not work so well was a game called Railroad Revolution. It has a dominant strategy that is pretty unbeatable. But it turns out that without telling anybody, they showed up in Essen with an expansion for it. I think that this game is an interesting game. I think that it has one problem with it. And if this expansion can fix that problem, this could be a game that all of a sudden jumps into the fray when we talk about what is a great rail game in certain elements. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Another bit of Essen news. This is Essen week after all. Essen starts tomorrow, or when you guys are listening to it, it will have already happened. Through the Ages, New Leaders and Wonders expansion that we just announced last week. They have de-announced.
They whiffed.
Big problem. There was a printing error, and the backs of the cards are different shades than the original cards, which, as you know, is a huge, huge problem. They have to be able to match, and evidently they had a production problem. They addressed it, and then when the second set of cards came in, there was still a production problem. So rather than try and do anything else with it, they decided, look, we're going to order these at a later time. We're not going to have it for Essen, but anyone who was pre-ordering it or anyone who is really looking forward to it, you can go to the booth at Essen, and they will give you a code that will get you the ability to use that expansion for free on their game.
And this is the expansion and cards that are already available on the app, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, but you have to pay a certain amount of money to get it. Is that right? That's all you got for me? Vito Lacerda on his Twitter put a tweet that shows an early prototype of a new game of his. He calls it Weather Machine. I don't know what it is. It looks kind of Victorian scientific, sort of Jules Verne, H.G. Wellsian. I see radii with different color circles, and I see meeples of different colors moving up those circles.
I'm calling BS on this. This is not an early prototype. Look at this art. Look at those cards. This is not what an early prototype looks like.
Trey, you are notorious for creating gorgeous,
Oh, yes.
gorgeous prototypes of games that are not.
Well, thank you for saying so, but it's a mistake to over art
Yes,
at an early stage.
we tell you that, and you do it anyway.
And Vito Lacerda is a professional, so I think this is the same way you say, hey, this is a first draft on scripts. A lot of
Okay.
times when you've in fact done 7. You know, the thing the studio has or whatever that you're going out with, that's the first draft. So I think there's an equivalent here.
I have no idea what you were speaking of.
Okay, but good news. Looks like there's a new Vito Lacerda game coming down the pipe that already has a lot of looks like final art.
It looks pretty. It looks pretty. It looks a little Nemo's War, if you've seen Nemo's War. It looks pretty cool. High Frontier, one of my all-time favorite games that Trey has put on his will not play, do not invite me list.
Brilliant and beautiful. I want to put it on my wall. The map is gorgeous.
You just don't want to play it.
I want to fix it. It's an imminently fixable game.
It's such a good game. It's amazing. High Frontier 4 is coming out. It's been announced for
High Frontier
2020.
4 all? 4 is
I don't know why it says all. I don't know what
it's
that
just
is.
you just think it's 4?
Does it say all?
I'm just thinking it's on the artwork.
All right. High Frontier 4 all, which might just mean all of the expansions.
You're less excited now
I'm
with that name.
I'm not excited or unexcited about it. I'm like, Phil, come on. Phil Eklund is the designer of High Frontier. He's also the designer of Pax Porfiriana. He's also the designer. He's the designer of a lot of games. Sierra Madre is his company, and he makes most of the games that come out of it. He's a pretty good designer. That said, this one probably is the closest to home for him because he worked at JPL as basically aeronautical engineer, something along those lines, for 30 years, something along those lines. That was his day job. May still be his day job for all I know. So
Because he might have gotten. Never. I'm not going to say it.
lots of people in this hobby have day jobs, Trey.
No, that's not my point. My point was that he's kind of. A lot of people think he's a climate denier.
Yeah.
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 I was like, does that get you fired from JPL if you're
Maybe.
a climate denier?
See, you're just negative Nancy today. You're just crushing every little thing, right? There's a fun little game of
You
life
want me to be
that's out.
pro climate denial?
No, I'm saying there's a new edition of High Frontier, and can't we look on the rosy side? Why, what do you got to be a Debbie Downer here?
I cannot.
Okay, well, very well then. I will tell you that High Frontier is a game that a lot of people in our gaming group find impenetrable and nigh impossible to play. My 12-year-old son loves it. It's his favorite game. What does that tell you? He's telling you that you guys are all wrong and that you should try it again. And it's actually
True, I should take my board game choices from how old is he?
He's 16 now.
16 now. But when he was 12, that was his favorite.
It still is one of his favorite.
Okay.
But yes.
So I should listen to Aiden on this.
I'm saying he mastered it at 12 and you guys are finding it impenetrable.
I don't believe that was my reaction to it, Tom.
Am I misquoting?
Yeah. It has dice to resolve certain things. You play the game for hours and then you roll a die and you see whether you crash on landing or not.
Why are you trying to land on a comet in the first place? Okay, there is a lot of you go to Ceres. Okay, there's tons of there's a huge asteroid belt. You can go anywhere. Okay, why
You're saying there's guaranteed landings in that?
Sure, yeah,
Someplace?
absolutely. Yeah.
I should not just do half the game because I don't want to roll a die.
Half the game. We're talking about radical aero braking maneuvers that you're trying. I mean, you're
Oh my God.
You talk about how unfair the game is, but you're like Paul. You guys go to the riskiest thing.
No. It's not true.
All right, part 2 of our Essen preview we're going to get to right now.
Please.
Here we go. We got
I want to be positive here.
Imperial Settlers, Empires of the North. This is a card-based game that is set in the Imperial Settlers world. If you guys don't know Imperial Settlers, it is a good, solid Euro game. I like Imperial Settlers.
I like it too.
I like it quite a bit.
It's a card game.
This one looks like it may be a little bit more of a card game. I don't know. Maybe it's the same thing. But this is a standalone game. This is not an expansion. Players are heading the far north, where 3 different factions live: Scotsmen, Inuits, and Vikings. And you take the role of a leader and try to make your faction the best empire in the world. These are fun games. I really like Imperial Settlers, and if it's anything like that, this is one that everybody should be considering.
So I thought I saw this at Gen Con.
Did you?
Yeah. But I mean, maybe Essen's like its official launch or whatever. But I thought I saw this.
All I'm doing is I'm pulling from.
Yeah, but we haven't played it yet.
What are the exciting things that people
are
doing at Essen? It doesn't mean that it's absolutely the first place that it's appearing, but
because one of the designers here too is what, Ignacy Trzewick?
Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
Detective.
Yes.
Among other.
Yes.
This is a good designer. We like.
Detective is one of the better deduction games that's out there right now. We like that very much, as a matter of fact. Yes, absolutely.
Did he? I'm looking here. It says Pret-a-Porter is one of his games, but it's saying 2010. Is Pret-a-Porter a re-release?
Oh, yes, it is.
So there you go.
This guy's got the goods.
Robinson Crusoe, Detective, Imperial Settlers, Stronghold, Pret-a-Porter. It's a good designer.
Right? Solid. Yeah. Absolutely. Next up, we have a game called USS Yorktown. I am going to tell you why Trey will never play this game.
Who's being negative now?
I'm just telling you why you will never play this game. And I think you know as well as I do exactly why. All right. So this is a 1 to 4 player cooperative game where you are doing the Pacific Battle of the USS Yorktown against the Japanese aircraft carrier Shono. I believe this was the Battle of Midway.
I'm in so far.
Right? It is card-based. It is fast. It is good. It plays in 30 to 45 minutes.
I see some dice. Oh.
It does have some dice, but that's not the reason that you won't play it.
Okay.
The reason you won't play it, Trey, is that it plays for 30 to 45 minutes because each mission is timed, and there is a timer that is counting down as you go through the entire mission. The great thing about that is that if you're playing 2 against 2, you and your partner can communicate all you want, but it's eating into your time. It's eating into what you're doing. So
I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
You tend not to like those like games with a timed element. You tend to say
my nervous system doesn't enjoy them.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. They leave the realm of stressful fun and enter the world of just stressful.
Maybe I'd give it a shot.
It is short. I mean, 30 minutes.
I'm not ruling it out. I also a lot of times you see games that have a timer, and I feel like the timer often is an admission of a design failure.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Like, the decision space is too big. We need to put a timer on things because people are taking too long. You know what I mean? Or
can you think of an example? Because I'm trying to think of.
Well, let me put it this way: Codenames comes with a timer.
Sure.
A timer.
Sure.
Do we ever actually use it?
We don't use it, but I could see certain social conventions.
And I'm also like, I'm in board game prototyping groups or whatever, and I'm just saying when I see that timer, it's a strike. Now maybe there's a good reason for it, but it's generally hard to find a good reason for a timer in these games. If it's built in and it's part of the thing and it's adding to the tension, I'd love to check it out.
When I think of timer games, I think of Space Alert. I think of things like that. I think of Captain Sonar, even though it doesn't officially have that. It is one of those.
Right. No, you're definitely under time constraint. Yeah, because I'm not against pressure cookers. I'm not against tension.
Right.
And stress.
Right.
So I'm just interesting where we're drawing this line.
Maybe this will fit better for you then, because you don't like the Space Alert and you don't like Captain Sonar, and it is.
I don't hate Space Alert.
You don't? Okay.
No.
Good.
But again, it's more just a what is fun for you type of thing. Like, I think Space Alert is a fine game, and for a lot of people, that tick 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 we're trying to coordinate thing is gonna be a source of tons of laughs. And for me, I'm just like, I feel like I'm failing, I'm doing wrong or something like that, and I'm mad when I'm inefficient. So it's not hitting the right pleasure buttons for me.
It makes you feel incompetent.
Yes.
Yeah, and by the way, but
not something I enjoy.
No, but that's kind of what you're supposed to feel to some extent in the game, right?
Sure.
A lot of the fun of the game is the inability to be perfect about it.
I think the emotion I'm looking for in the games is like one that I experienced last night when we were at the end barrage, and like I'm in first place, and you're like, wow, that was not even close. Like, I think that might be the emotion that I was looking for.
I couldn't find my asterisk sticker. I just wanted to put it right on the map there. But so I'll say one more thing about USS Yorktown. I'm gonna military history geek out on you here. So the interesting thing about this is that carriers of the time could launch planes, they could recover planes, they could not do both. So it was a very interesting situation in which the Japanese commanders had a huge failure because they couldn't decide what to do. They had sent out search planes looking for American carriers, expecting to find none, and they found none. When they came back, all of a sudden, there were American planes coming right at them. They had been discovered. They had to figure out, what are we going to do? We already launched one sortie that was bombing Midway, that was on its way back. Do we launch our close action fighters and fight these guys off, or is it just a fluke? Whatever you do, it's about a 30-minute clock. It's a 30-minute clock to recover the planes that are coming in. It's a 30-minute clock to launch. It's to change what you're launching.
See, that seems organic to me. That seems really cool.
Right. It is. It's really, really interesting. And I don't know what the video is, but if you go and you look up the Battle of Midway, there is a amazing animated presentation of the battle from the Japanese viewpoint, and it's about a half hour, 40 minutes long. Absolutely fascinating. If you watch that, I guarantee you're going to want to buy 1942 USS Yorktown. Not a lot of reviews, so it's early yet to say how the game plays, but I like the idea of it very much.
Yeah, I would definitely play this game. And I'm especially interested because I've done work with the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum before, and Midway is, I know, something they're interested in designing education around. So
really,
yep.
Wow. Yes, you did. I
did a disaster relief scenario looking at the Pacific Rim, but they're mostly World War II history, and so they have both Pearl Harbor and Midway as kind of their big historical events that they're educating kids about. So
this would be fantastic.
Yeah, so I definitely want to check this out.
Done. Next up, we got a game called Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace is a game that we have ordered. We have ordered it even though we barely know anything about Karsten Lauber, the designer. Crystal Palace, it plays 2 to 5 players. It says 90 to 150 minutes. Karsten Lauber is the designer. The artist is Andrea Alamano. Basically, Crystal Palace takes place during the First World's Fair that happened in London in 1851, and you're trying to create a buzz with spectacular inventions. You're trying to get the support of famous and powerful people. It is a dice placement game. The interesting thing about that is I believe that unlike in random games of chance, the dice is never rolled. The dice are rather chosen and placed where they want to be. The idea being that whatever pips you put out on the board, that is what you have to pay. So it is a game in which you start with a decent amount of money, but quickly becomes a very tight economic engine in which you are trying to get the maximum benefit or get the right benefits at the right time for your economy. It'll have people like Phileas Fogg, Levi Strauss, Amelia Edwards. It'll have gadgets like the thinking machine, the beer glass counter, or the climate changer. So it sounds like it'll be a little Jules Verne, maybe not all that different than the game we just saw from Vita Lacerda.
I always like that term, Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
Well, for one, it's a football team in England, so I wonder if it's based upon this area, Crystal Palace. And then also, isn't it like a military term? Like, I remember this from War Games.
Yeah, Crystal Palace is what they call NORAD.
Crystal Palace. This is an actual alert.
Button up the mountain. The original term, Crystal Palace, was a derogatory term that was what the Londoners gave to this glass and steel structure that was built in Hyde Park to house the very first World's Fair, which Londoners were dubious about and were mocking Victoria's husband, Prince Albert, who was championing it. Prince Albert being a foreigner, having a thick German accent and so on and so forth. And he was very excited to bring the world here and show all this sort of stuff off. He was mocked, he was ridiculed, and then the fair opened and everybody thought it was the most amazing thing that it had ever been, that they'd ever seen.
Joke's on them.
Joke is on them. Always be innovating. Always be innovating. Next up, we have Underwater Cities. Underwater Cities New Discoveries is an expansion that Vladimir Suhi is putting out at this coming Essen. I like Underwater Cities. I don't absolutely love Underwater Cities. Right?
I think I'm in the same spot.
I really am excited about this expansion, and I'm you guys can't see it, but my fingers are both crossed right now because I'm like, come on, Vladimir. Come on. I like your games very, very much. Some of your games I absolutely love. I love Shipyard. I want this to be a little bit of a fix. I want this to just address the few things that aren't quite hitting the dominance of the kelp strategy and a few other little niggling things. I want you to take this game to the next level because it's so next levelable. It's so good right out of the box that I think it really could be something awesome. I see that it has some of the most gorgeous player boards I've ever seen. The new player board for this thing is sort of dark and mysterious and absolutely gorgeous. Very, very advanced player boards in the sense that when you put something on, it has a recess for the domes, for the dome cities. It has recesses for the various places. You remember the original had some. It was fairly thin cardstock that was where you put things. And as always, you're stacking pieces on top of each other on thin cardboard. Things are going to fall all over the place, and this is really going to take care of that. It has new cards, and it says that it has a number of modules which are playable as an expansion, which means you can mix and match and add what you want to it. So I'm going to be getting this because I'm not willing to give up on Underwater Cities. It's not even give it up isn't the right term, because if somebody puts it out, I will play it. I will play Underwater Cities pretty much anytime somebody offers it to me.
But it's not making it to the table now, though, is it? Kind of.
No, I'm not choosing it.
Yeah.
But if it's chosen, I'll happily play it. But it's one of those games where I think it could be one of those games that is one of my go-tos. It just needs a little something, and I can't say exactly what that something is, but I'm very
it's whatever it needs. It's missing it for me a little bit right now.
Totally. And the last thing we're going to talk about here is an expansion for Terra Mystica. Terra Mystica: Merchants of the Sea. The same designers of Terra Mystica are on this one. So Jens Drogmuller and Helga Ostertag. Artist is Dennis Lohausen. To be frank, I'm annoyed.
Right.
I'm very, very annoyed by this.
Why are you annoyed, Tom?
I'm annoyed because they're doing an expansion for a game that has been replaced by the very same designers who made a better game. It is like finding out that Apple has stopped developing the iPhone to focus on the next generation of iPods. I don't get it. I don't get why you would do that. It just doesn't track for me. I'm like, Gaia Project is the better game. It just flat out is. And when I find out that on The Geek they say we don't have any plans to create an expansion for Gaia Project right now, and they're coming out with all these expansions for Terra Mystica, which it's just not as good a game. Why are you pouring your time and energy into it?
Yeah, I'm not sure I believe that.
That they're not doing an expansion?
I think they have two viable properties, and you should continue to develop both. I mean, the analogy I was making here is like Blizzard, once they had done StarCraft, still went back and did more Warcrafts. It's like, even though they're kind of at this, at the core, they're very similar games, but it makes sense to continue to develop two similar but differently themed games. I mean, let's face it, we're going to play this, so they're getting us. We're not going to play it out of protest. But I agree with you.
Will we though? I don't know if I will.
I'll try it.
I literally don't know if I will.
Maybe it'll prove us wrong. Maybe it's awesome.
I would say this. I would say Terra Mystica already has an expansion. This is the second major expansion for Terra Mystica.
These people are in business.
Yeah. All right. Fine. My advice. My strong advice is play Gaia Project.
Well, let me put it this way also, like when it comes to Gaia Project, would you actually want an expansion, or would you just more want something like 14 more starting races or whatever it is, just some different initial player powers? Because I don't think I want a bunch of new mechanisms put on top of a pretty complete game.
Good conversation to have with the designer. Here we go. This is what I would like. I want a Gaia Project with a different tech board. Okay. Different resources coming out of the various tracks, different combinations, different bonuses. So,
right, we've
that
seen
come
this
there.
before, right? Like the standard way to do this in an expansion would be suddenly there's one new tech tree over there, and it's more of a it does all kinds of things track, right?
Yes.
It's the salt
grab bag.
Yeah, it's the grab bag tech thing, right?
And but also make the other track, like, because we know that certain tracks. Listen, Gaia Project is a really well balanced game, but don't you think that some of the tech tracks in Gaia Project get more used than others?
Absolutely. I would also say that my initial assessment about what was a good tech track was pretty wrong. Like, this was a game where I had some initial impressions. Certain things looked good. Repeat plays like and sometimes like this is a sign of a good game is like you need to actually hear from other players who've played a lot to get you out of your own ruts and predilections and say go this route. And so I feel like that happened on this one where it's like, you really need to be looking at the income tech track on this, and I feel I appreciate certain ones more now. In fact, the least viable was the one that I think coming out of Terra Mystica I was most likely to take, which would be like the
terraforming.
The terraforming, which that may be the weakest track.
I think it is now. But listen, the great thing about one of the reasons Gaia Project is so good is that depending on what race I play, and depending on what the board state is, there is not a single track that I am going to ignore. There is a definite chance that the least used track might be my most important track in any particular game. So it's already great. But I'm saying change up the power actions, what the bonuses are for the power actions, change up the progression up the tech track, add that one new tech track. I would play the heck out of that. I think that'd be fantastic. And I also think that there is more to be done with transdims and Gaia formers. I think that's sort of a part of the game that is kind of fascinating, and in any given game, 1 to 2 players will ignore it completely, and maybe there's a way to make it more interesting to all players to interact with. Anyway, that was Terra Mystica, which we have dealt with by not talking about Terra Mystica.
We're going to play it.
We're probably going to play it, but it's just not that good. No, it's not that it's not that good. I correct myself. It's a fantastic game. If I had never played Gaia Project, it would be the game that I am yelling at you.
It has been replaced.
That I am yelling at you to play.
Yeah.
Right? I would be telling you, you have to play Terra Mystica. But now that we played Gaia Project, you don't have to play Terra Mystica anymore. So why? All right, done.